Thank you, Lori and Tristana. Is that how you say it? Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a great song. It felt like it was singing right to my heart, because I feel like that, Eric Butterworth talks about that divine potentiality moving through you, and I don't always want it to go through. I feel like that the voices, I'm sitting over there saying, do I know what I'm doing? What am I doing here? And I know this book so well. I love it. I know a lot of people have different issues about the way it was written, some of the wording, the he, but if you can get past that, there's a lot of amazing lessons in this book. And we're at the end. And I do have to say I'm really happy that we're at the end, because I have notes everywhere. I did a book study. I did Reverend Pat's one day, and I love taking notes because that's how I learn. I highlight, and then I take all those highlights and I write them down, and then I highlight my notes, the special ones. And then I was telling Lori in the staff meeting, I have notes everywhere, and she goes, just come from your heart. And I'm like, ah. I do want to. And doing this talk today, if you could have seen me all last week, it's hysterical. I mean, I'm constantly looking over my notes. I have about 7 outlines. And something's inside of me just saying, just talk, But to trust that divinity within me, to just really trust it. I'm trusting it right now, so hold me. So thank you. And I thank Reverend Pat for giving me the opportunity to take the platform and everything today. I'm grateful that he sees something in me that I don't quite see yet, So thank you. Last month, I went to New Jersey, and I go every 6 months, and I go see my family. My family's in New Jersey, and my mother is in a memory care unit. And so I always go and see her. And I'm taken off on the plane, and I have to say, before I recognized God within me, I was terrified of flying. I would go, but I just didn't like it. For some reason, when I don't know about finding that divinity within me, the fear of flying has disappeared. I don't know. I think I feel safe. I trust the universe. I trust the divine order, even if I'm not saying that something would not happen to me, but I have a trusting. Although I do call silent unity before I go, and I do tap the plane. I always touch the plane and bless it. And then I go in and I make sure that, the pilot looks safe, that he looks after all those things are in check. Okay, so I'm on the plane, and what I love to do now is meditate as we're taking off. So when we're just about to take off, I close my eyes, and it's almost like I want to feel everything in that takeoff. And because I don't know, it's a humbling place, when that plane lifts up. So I meditate, and and all of a sudden it goes really fast, and in that moment there's just going to be that liftoff. And it's such a bizarre feeling because you're sitting there in the plane, and it's like, how in the world? I always think, I hope people didn't bring too much luggage. Is it too heavy? All the metal, but it actually takes off. And in that meditation, I was just thinking to myself, the law of aerodynamics. Thank God they're actually applying the law of aerodynamics, because otherwise I doubt we'd be taking off. If they just read all the books and so forth and said, here, try this thing and, see if it'll go. But they're actually working the laws. This book, Discover the Power Within, really talks about us working these laws, not just reading them, but actually putting them to work. Jesus said that when you find that divinity within, when we learn how to work with this divinity within, and I said it at the beginning, we can become abundant, powerful, loving, peaceful people. But we got to keep working on this divinity within. One of the first stories I think it's in the prologue actually, there was a Hindu folklore, and it talked about this. It was a place in time where all the people were gods, Everyone was running around, and they were just abusing their divinity. They were just doing all sorts of crazy things. So Brahma, the big god, said, you know what? That's it. I'm going to hide this divinity on them because they're just abusing this power. So he's telling his friends there in his circle, he says, I'm going to hide it at the top of the mountain. And the guy said, they're going to find it. They're going to hide. They're going to hike, and they'll find it. It's not a good spot. Try deep in the earth. Nope, not quite. They'll find it. They'll just keep digging, and they'll find it. How about if in the middle of the ocean? Nope. They're going to somehow find that thing. How about if we hide it deep within each person? They're never going to find it there. And I love that story because it feels like the story of my life, kind of up until yesterday when I was in Costco and trying to avoid doing this talk and looking for something to buy. So I realized that, most of my life, my learning has been about, I buy something, or I had the house, I had the picket fence, I had a dog, but I tell you, the husband just wasn't doing what I wanted him to do. And somehow that little perfect picture did not work. And I moved, and I had a new boyfriend, and I had this. And I realized that when I started bringing all this stuff in within a day or two, that it lost its fun. It was like losing its energy. I gave up smoking about 32 years ago. People always say, I can't believe you smoked. And I'm like, I know. I used to smoke and walk. After yoga class, I would have a cigarette. But eventually, the yoga and Tai Chi did work, and it did disappear. But I remember my mother took me to Canyon Ranch because she said, when you give up smoking, I'll take you to this ranch. And it's like this exclusive place where you walk around in white robes, and you sign up for all these fun events. And one of them was doing some kind of therapy, sitting on a bouncing ball, like you had to just bounce. And he would ask you these questions. And I remember saying, I just feel like I have a big hole, like going down through my belly button. And it just felt like I didn't know how to fill it up, And I just remember that flash of a scene. And I realized that I think giving up the smoking is what the smoking kind of filled that hole temporarily. But it kind of left this open place. And I think over the years with yoga, Tai Chi, and then coming to Unity, I realized that it started to fill up, All of a sudden now when I buy stuff, me and my husband have a thing that if we bring something into the house, 2 things have to go. It's working fairly well. But we don't have the space now, I like having a smaller space, and I like keeping things simple. So this book, again, is really teaching us how to stay centered in ourselves. Practices. For me, before I came to Unity, I'm still a yoga teacher, and I'm still a massage therapist. And I think I shared this before, but after my yoga practice, I would have this feeling of bliss. I would come out of yoga class thinking, wow, I just feel so good. I feel like I could handle anything. I felt relaxed. And in fact, if I looked in the mirror, I said I looked pretty beautiful. But you know what? By halfway through the end of the day, I started to look in that mirror and say, I don't know, your hair isn't really great. Or, you could do something with your face, something. And those critical things started to come back, and I started to realize that I like that feeling after yoga. I like the feeling even when I did massage or even received a massage, both. When I came out, I would feel really centered. And I didn't know what that was, but I liked it. I wanted more of it. In fact, that's why I wanted to teach it. I wanted to give it to people. I wanted to give that gift of learning how to relax yourself. So when I came to Unity, and one of the first book studies I did with Reverend Pat was Discover the Power Within. I didn't really have any spiritual practice. I grew up a Catholic, but it wasn't a terrible Catholic. I didn't have any scars from it. I didn't take any of it in, and I think I was smart when I was young. It just didn't go in. I just sat there. My mother said, you have to stay to 8th grade and then you can leave. And I left. So, I didn't take it in. So when we read this book, Discover the Power Within, it was almost like it lit up and it said to me, I think that feeling that you're feeling after yoga, after massage, after walking in nature, I believe you are centered in God. And it was like, wow, now I could attach all these attributes of God, of this potentiality, of this love, of this relaxation, and now I want to learn, how do I keep it more and more? And one thing is prayer. Thank you, prayer chaplains. I've been a prayer chaplain for 13 years. It's weird not to be a prayer chaplain this year. I am managing the prayer chaplains or director of the prayer chaplains, but it is still kind of weird not to be a prayer chaplain, because those 13 years really taught me that my life can be prayer, that every thought I'm thinking, I've got to be mindful of what I'm thinking, because that in this book, what we think about, we create. It's humbling to look out there. When I used to teach, when I taught yoga, and I still teach yoga, I don't know why I keep saying it in the past, but early on, I remembered I would look out at my class, and I noticed that I could almost watch my consciousness through my students. I could see that if I came in and I was really centered, I sat down and I started teaching, everyone seemed really focused. If I was kind of thinking of something else, or, my mind was wandering a little bit, I could almost see that in my students. And he says that in the law of compensation, where our energy, really, when you bring your energy into a room, it sets a tone. One thing I like to do is, if I have to make a conversation with someone that's maybe difficult, or even going to the phone store. I don't know if anyone likes going to the phone store with a problem, but I have to bless the building and I bless the people in it. And I want to come from my heart and just and get this whatever accomplished. I know that when I bring my energy to something, it gets reflected back to me, So I'm really mindful. When I feel stressed, like when I had all these papers all over the place, the house, I looked at this. I said, this isn't me. What am I doing? And I knew I'm way too much in my head. I'm worrying about, will they like it? Does it make sense? I don't know. What am I doing here? How do you put the whole book in, 10 minutes? So one thing I learned is really to always go back to center when I'm starting to feel that stress and discord. Andrew, I'm going to play in just one moment. I'm going to set you up for a minute. It's about a minute and a half. And one thing I love to do is when I walk is I listen to podcasts. And believe it or not, Eric Butterworth has a podcast. It's a little old. I hope it's, you can hear it. But I wanted to pick out a little section of it just so that you can get a feeling of what he sounds like, if you don't know what he sounds like, just to get an idea. It's about a minute and a half, so listen carefully. Andrew, would you play that?
Whatever you're doing, you have something working for you, something working within you. You have the whole universe on your side. That's something to remember. To believe this is to keep the green bough in your heart. And there will come one day to stay, a singing bird. In our quest for truth, we come to realize that there's a real-life genius within every person, struggling for releasement. There's a real-life genius within you. If you listen to the eternal song of Easter, you'll believe that the stone of limitation, whatever it may be, will be rolled away from your tomb of human consciousness. You can overcome. You can be more. You can do more. You can achieve your goals. Of course, you'll have to work. Let's don't oversimplify it. You'll have to work. You'll have to study. You'll have to discipline yourself. My friends, we misunderstand Jesus if we fail to note his personal commitment and discipline and overcoming of his own quest. But the principle that Jesus demonstrated, and it is a principle that has been demonstrated by all the spiritual giants of all time, is very simply and emphatically that you can achieve, you can overcome, you can fulfill your uniqueness. Catch that personal application of the Easter story. Otherwise, it's all for naught. Now, at this point, you may be thinking, well, that's a lovely thought.
All right. I know it's a little shaky. I think he was older, too, at the time. But I just hopefully you got a little taste of it. And, you know, he was talking about the great demonstration, and I just love that. I feel like I really got it a little more this time reading it, what the great demonstration is, and really kind of rising above the limitations and so forth that we place on ourselves. I'm getting emotional now. When I took this job, Reverend Pat offered it to me, and I was shocked. I mean, I was like, what? You know, how did, me take this job? And I said, just give me a couple days so I can think about it, taking this job. And, Now I knew that I've done all the work. I've done all the work to get to where I am now. I know that. The hard part was getting my head to wrap around, do I deserve this job? Who am I to be in this job? I mean, that's Reverend Pat I'm standing up here with, So I was, the next couple of days, and I was talking it over with Lou, but I really felt this. There's something about me. I love challenging myself, and I do. I love challenging myself, and I love facing fears, and I love going through fears, and that's what I'm doing up here right now. And I realized, I felt it in my heart that I wanted to take it. I can do it. So when I said to Reverend Pat, I said, yes, I would love to do it. And I'm learning to keep those voices down lower. I hear them come up, and I'm really keeping them low. I want to really stay in this divine presence because I know there's something pushing through me. I know there's something that wants me to be bigger, not ego-wise, but being more of myself. I love the visual of this divine power pushing through me my personality. My personality. When I work on my forgiveness, and I've done, 6 years of, therapy, I've really worked on that forgiveness and letting go. And honestly, when you are centered in that divine, and he talks about seeing people with a single eye, you see the divinity within people, forgiveness comes a lot easier. I started to realize that, the things I was mad about them, I've done in my life. And, even driving, I have actually gone through a red light by mistake. So I'm sure that person who just did it, it could have been a mistake. Who am I to judge? I don't know that what's happening. So I've really learned to see a deeper compassion in people, that there really is a divinity in them. I think our conversations, politically and so forth, really we have to come from a place of our heart. And I've had some. I can. It's amazing. You really have to stay centered in that place of Christ. I'm going to read this, one of my favorite quotes. I have a couple, actually, but I'll read this one. I think it's in the last chapter or the Great Demonstration. And it says, sleeping within you is a strong, capable, confident, dynamic person, the person you long to be. No matter what obstacles may beset you, there is a seed potential within you of a giant-like man, woman, who can conquer and overcome. And the affirmation is, I am in tune with the infinite, and I can do what needs to be done. Through the power that indwells me, I can succeed, I can overcome, and I can be what I desire to be. And with that, I say amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I have to say, being supported by Unity is really, I feel the unconditional love, because I don't know if I could do this without the love that I get from people and people believing me. And I feel like I just grow and grow here. It's like, ah. And Lori, thanks for telling me to come from my heart. I thought about that.